Hey, everybody. What a great turnout. What an exciting time. We're just a few days away from the 2025 season opener. So great to see all of you. I'm going to be your guys' kind of your voice tonight because I'm going to be asking a lot of questions of these folks, but they've all been submitted by annual members. Some will be probably submitted from people in this room, others from those who couldn't be here. We'll do that for about 40 minutes for the questions on the cards, and then we'll open it up. So it'll be kind of open mic, so to speak, for everybody out there, and you guys can ask questions. I'll introduce everybody up here, though I would think most of you probably know who everybody is. We have Timbers General Manager Ned Grabavoy, Portland Timbers CEO Heather Davis, the head coach of the Portland Timbers Phil Neville, and center back Zac McGraw. Big couple weeks for Zac, by the way. Just signed a contract extension, or was announced today, like 3 hours ago. And 3 weeks ago, he became a father. So, big month for Zac. Congratulations. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those things. But look, we're going to start with Ned and Phil, and we're going to start right away with the big topic of the offseason, the big topic of the past few months for the Portland Timbers, and that's Evander. And the trade is now official. $12 million coming to the Timbers, and Evander, now an FC Cincinnati player. So can you speak, I guess we'll start with you, Ned, specifics as to why Evander was traded?
Yeah, well, it took us about 12 seconds to get to the first Evander question, but probably to be anticipated. Just, quickly from me, just good evening to everyone that's here. Obviously very exciting to be 5 days out from the home opener. Seems like the offseason has flown by in many ways, maybe aged me 3 or 4 years in the process of it, but couldn't be more excited for the 2025 season. Incredible to see the amount of people that we have here in support, obviously excited for the next season as well. And to jump into the Evander trade, we obviously made a decision as a club within the past few days, a very, very big decision to go in a different direction. It's with Evander and having him here, in my role, in my position, I have to take all the information that I have in front of me and ultimately assess what I think is best for the club short and long term. In looking at that from last season, moving through this offseason, it became apparent to me, to us as a club, that best decision was to move on, to bring in another high-profile, high-quality player. And that move doesn't happen if we're not bringing in another designated player to add to the group. But looking at that, we felt like it was best to go in a different direction. I go back to last season. We tried to discuss a contract with Evander. We started to work on that early in the season and then through the summer. And I think it's really, really challenging, and in bringing Phil in last year as well, who has very specific thoughts on how he wants to see the culture at this club, the players that he wants here, that there was this constant uncertainty of, does Evander want to be here, does he not want to be here? Dealing with his father, who is the agent, in all honesty, was difficult at times. We felt like at times we would have very good communication with Evander, just for that to sometimes also change when we went back to obviously deal with his agent. Phil and I spoke to Evander at the end of the season, obviously after an emotional loss against Vancouver, which I was very public at that time to say I disagreed with his actions. For me, that's a lack of leadership. You show your true qualities in the hardest moments. That was time for the leaders in the club, leaders in the team, Phil, myself, to stand up in front of the staff, to stand up in front of the players, take responsibility, take accountability, because ultimately it's on all of us. And it hurt all of us the way that season ended. We spoke with Evander and said, you need to spend some time away. We want to actually give you time. And you need to think about what it is that you ultimately want. I'm not sure if Phil feels any differently than me, but I still even think through the offseason, I'm not quite sure we ever got to a place where we truly knew what Evander, the player, wanted. And so as things started to transpire and play out this offseason, knowing that we had another really, really quality player, wanted the opportunity in MLS, wanted the opportunity here in Portland, and then having an offer in front of us the size that we did, we felt that we had to move forward. We're looking forward. I know it's a big decision. We're looking forward as a club. We have to, and we will, and we will move forward.
Thanks, Ned. I think I agree with everything that Ned says. We had to make a real strong decision. I only want to say one thing on this because I want us to start talking about the number 10 that we've just brought in, David Acosta, because he's the most important player now in our football club in terms of moving forward. As a manager, as a GM, as a club, and especially as a supporters group, I've been here for 12 months, and the biggest thing that I've learned about this football club is that it's the heart and soul of this city. You're all very proud of this city. You're all immensely proud of this football club. And we only want players playing for Portland Timbers that want to be here. So we had to make a real tough decision about a brilliant footballer who scored some fantastic goals. But the club is more important than one individual. The club and the team are more important than one individual. And I think you all know how I feel about Evander. But we made the best decision for Portland Timbers Football Club to be successful. And what our focus should be now is on David Acosta, on Jonathan Rodriguez, on Zac McGraw, on the team going forward, because the team is more important than one individual. And in football, you've got to make big decisions, and we had to make a big decision. And we worked really hard for the last 12 months both on and off the field, in trying to make Evander the best possible player on the field, which he was, and off the field to try and make him as settled as possible. Unfortunately, it didn't work, and we now move on, and we've got the best number 10 now in the Western Conference, I promise you. He's a special player, different to Evander, with different qualities, and I think you're going to be absolutely blown away with this young boy that we've brought in.
Let's get straight into David Acosta, the newest Portland Timber. High praise from you right there. And he's been with the team for at least, a week now, some more time than that. So what have you seen from him in training, and what are those special qualities that you've seen in David Acosta? And then I'll ask Ned about what you saw in him in the scouting process to sign him.
Well, I think, he played in one of the top leagues in European football. I think one of the games that Ned went to see was against Paris Saint-Germain. You know, you're playing against a team that's $1 billion team, and he was holding his own, outstanding young player. Like I say, totally different than the previous number 10 we have. He's 1-2 touch player. He's really quick. He likes playing in tight spaces. He runs forward. I think with the type of team that we have now, with Kevin Kelsey, Anthony, Santi, Pipe Mora, Jonathan Rodriguez, we're going to be a real quick team, particularly on the counter-attack, particularly on transitions. And he's going to work both with and without the ball. And when you see him, he looks like an absolute baby. Trust me, he looks really young. Yeah, he does. But yesterday, we saw him for the first time with the team. He's a special player, and I can't wait for Providence Park to see him play.
Ned, you guys had identified him. This didn't happen in the past week or two, right? I mean, it was a longer process. So what did you see in that identification process that made you realize he was a special player that you wanted to bring here?
Well, I think early on, probably back in the fall, September, October, around that time, when we at least, started to question where are we going with Evander, and do we need to look at replacements? The first thing I always tell myself when I look at a player, when I watch a player, is why am I watching this player? I watched for 2 minutes and I said, is this realistic? Does this player actually want to potentially come to MLS, to Portland? He's playing on a very, very good team. He's playing at a very, very good level. You don't often see 23, 24-year-olds come from some of the top leagues in Europe and a team that was playing in Champions League and Europa League. So I think the more and more I started to watch him, the more information I had. I decided to be proactive, and I said, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go to the club, be at the club, meet the player, have conversations, get to know more. For me, in traveling over there, what was interesting about it is the club that he was at actually reminded me of the Portland Timbers in many ways. The game I was at was, 32 degrees. The rain was coming in sideways. And watching him and a player that grew up in this club, you walk into the training ground, he's one of the biggest pictures that's right there because he's one of their own. Knowing that player came up through their system, that they trusted him as a person, as a player, a lot of that experience made me feel even more and more comfortable, not just about the player, because I know the player has high quality. Phil knows that as well, but more about the person. And I think with David and having the conversations with him, he was so eager for the next opportunity. He's so eager to take on a bigger role, within a team. And he realized the importance of this moment of his career that he's in as well. And so I look at this, I look at his age, I look at, even when we had brought Evander in from Denmark at the time, we've got a player that's just turned 24, and now we have to start this new process with a really talented individual, putting the pieces around him, giving the support that he needs to be successful, and really trying to build that confidence in him that he can become a top player in MLS. So I think that the work that we put in, some of the other players that we looked at, for us, it was almost an immediate, that player is going to be one of the top options that we're going to see as a potential next DP in a Portland Timbers jersey.
And he's coming in a really big year. Phil mentioned that the Timbers are such a part of the fabric of the city. We all know that. And it's been that way for 50 years now. This is the 50th anniversary of the Portland Timbers. What are the Timbers going to be doing, just kind of holistically, Heather, to mark the 50th anniversary of this club?
Yeah, this is going to be an incredible year. And let me just start by saying that I think for all of us up here, it's really a privilege to be able to be part of the 50th anniversary. You guys all and so many others around Portland built this club over the last 50 years. And it's just a real honor for us to be part of such a special moment in the club's history. We have a lot of really fun things planned. We'll be bringing alumni back throughout the year, celebrating their contributions through the NASL, USL, and MLS eras. July 16th will be our match that will honor the 2015 MLS Cup champion team. Yeah. So we'll bring them back. That'll be really fun. Later that same week, on July 19th, we'll have the Portland Timbers Best 11 celebrated at Providence Park. That'll be the Best 11 Timbers that'll be voted on by the fans a little bit later this summer, so more to come on that. And then, I don't think any 50th anniversary celebration would be complete without an opportunity to honor one of the players who I think is pretty much synonymous with the Portland Timbers at this point, and that's Diego Chara. So fans coming to our August 16th game will get a special commemorative giveaway that honors his incredible career here and that legendary smile, too. So I think you'll really enjoy that one.
So the 50th anniversary for the club. It is the 3-week anniversary of Trey McGraw. Is that correct, Zach? He was born 21 days ago?
You gotta keep him awake over there.
Yeah. How's fatherhood?
Well, first and foremost, I have a newfound respect for mothers everywhere. My mom, my wife, the amount of work my wife has just put in the last 3 weeks, and everything you go through in a pregnancy, it's incredible, honestly. My wife's healthy, the baby's healthy, and that's really all I could ask for.
That's great. We were talking a little bit about the logistics of it, because you guys were in California for the preseason, so talk me through, from a human perspective, how you handle that. And I know that your wife and baby were in California the whole time, right? So how do you get back to Portland? And what was the past month like in your life?
Yeah, so we made the decision in December that since the team was spending so much time in California, and I'm from Los Angeles, that we would have the baby in Los Angeles, just because my family still lives there, her family still lives there, my sisters, her sisters. There's just a lot of support there. And with me being in California for the majority of January and February, it just made sense. And if I had forced her to have the baby here, if she wanted to have the baby here, there would not be any support. So the original due date was February 10th, and that kind of aligned somewhere in between Orange County and Coachella, our 2 trips. But we had the baby early on January 28th, so we were actually in Orange County already. And the club was amazing with helping me with that. They let me go be there with my wife, my son. But yeah, grateful for them. Thankfully, they let my wife and child come on the charter flight back with us, so we had about 14, suitcases, bassinets, strollers. We fit it all underneath the plane. They saved me a lot of money and a lot of headache. So that was great.
He was changing diapers in the airport terminal. Very impressive, Doug.
Are the sports science staff, are they giving you a break when they look at your sleep numbers every night now? Are they understanding?
So we all have these rings on, the Aura rings, and it tracks our sleep. And it's just a running joke whenever someone has a child, they just know that the numbers are drastically going down. And unfortunately, that's what's happened to mine, but it's been great. It's been great, honestly.
So a new kind of spiritual member of the Portland Timbers family. We were talking about David DaCosta, but there are other new players, right, on this team. So they'll start with you, Ned. Tell us more about the other offseason acquisitions beyond just David, and then kind of Phil, how you see them fitting into the club.
Yeah, I think, well before the offseason starts, right, go all the way back to the summertime when we move through that secondary window, we meet as a staff, we meet with the scouting group, we look at the budgets going into next year, and then we put a plan in place, obviously, for our scouting group to start to identify the players and profiles that are of interest for us heading into the next season. I think through, deficiencies within the team last year that I think were apparent to Phil, myself, and others, we had a real big focus this offseason on how to try to improve some of the areas that we felt like we struggled with as a team last season. Set pieces were a little bit of an issue for us. We wanted to focus on some players that brought more height, brought more presence, gave us more physicality within the group. And we felt like we've gone out this offseason and really identified some players that fit within our group, but hopefully can upgrade us, and improve us in some of those areas. So when you look at some of the players we brought in, Kevin Kelsey is, I try to remind myself every day, 20 years old, but this is a young player that has a ton of potential, and he still has a lot of work and a lot of development, but we've got a great staff here to help bring him along. He can also make an immediate impact for the group as well. He's a handful to deal with up front. He adds a different component to our attack. And so I think he's one that we'll see, hopefully, the more and more he settles, we'll be able to help improve the team and improve the attack. We brought in Jao Ortiz from Ecuador, who's got great experience both in South American competition and national team. Really, we wanted to find a presence in the center of midfield that was, experienced, bring in a veteran, a guy that we just knew was going to be able to play at the level. I think he's had a little bit of a calming presence, and he gives us a different type of player within the midfield group as well. And then we've brought in, Yimmer Fori, a Colombian left back that we believe has a ton of potential as well. I think he's been one of the bright spots for sure in this preseason. He's come in, he's been fit immediately and just fallen right into that starting group for us. And obviously the last and most recent, David DaCosta, who's going to need a little bit of time, but I also think he might not need that much time either. Try to push as much as we can on a work visa this week to get him available when we can. And then, look, we've also added some other important pieces that maybe don't get as highlighted as some of the bigger acquisitions. Ian Smith is a draft pick for us and for this club and for someone that's been heavily involved in the draft over the years. He's been phenomenal in preseason. For a young rookie, he's not playing like a young rookie. So really gives us a good depth piece and hopefully a player that can continue to come along. We added Ariel Lasser as well with the departure last year of Dyron Espria and Marvin Loria. Gives us another experienced player in the attack, someone that Phil's worked with recently as well. And so we feel like we've really rounded out the group and probably accomplished everything we've needed to. The only last thing I would add within the new roster, the roster rules, initiatives, and making this trade with Evander, we have the ability to convert some of this cash to actual general allocation money. Won't get too far into the weeds on all the unique rules within MLS, but we now have the ability, other than just taking a big return and a good profit, to also potentially look at adding another very, very quality player to the group, and we'll start to look at that maybe over the next couple of months or so.
What have you seen from the new additions, again, outside of David?
Yeah, well, I think when we did our review at the end of the season, you look at the 17 goals we conceded from set plays, the average in the league was 8 or 9. If we would have been the average, I think we would have been a top 4 team. So the margins in football are so fine, is that we looked at the profile of the group and said, what do we need? Well, we needed more physicality, we needed more height. Jao Ortiz, experience above 6 foot. Kelsey is an animal, he's 6'2", 6'3". Jimmy Fori can jump like you wouldn't believe. So in terms of sort of like those 3 profiles, we've added height and physicality to our team straight away. In terms of Ian Smith, I honestly think he's been our best player in pre-season, a draft pick. He came in with no expectation. We weren't sure whether we was going to promote him to the MLS roster, and he's earned his MLS contract, and he's now pushing for a starting place. He's been phenomenal all preseason. So you look at that. Ariel Laster's got great experience, but you look at the profile of player that we've brought in: quick, physical, young, alongside David Acosta. I think we've really added depth. If you look at the last 4 or 5 games of the season, Austin at home, Dallas at home, Seattle away, and then Vancouver, we'd rolled the sort of like same 11 to 12 players for the whole of the second half of the season, and they were running on empty. I've got to say, they were running on empty. They had nothing left in the tank, and we just wanted a little bit more depth to make sure during the season we had more depth, we had more options, and we had more physical strength in the team. And I think up to now, I think we've accomplished everything that we wanted at the start of the off season. And I can't wait for the season to start, because I think you'll be really excited with these players that we've brought in.
This next question, it's kind of similar to, I think, to how you just answered that one, but the question specifically is, what tactical lessons were learned in 2024 to improve team defense in 2020?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, because we conceded too many goals, both in open play and from set plays. I mentioned set plays before. We were in the bottom 3 of the set plays conceded, goals conceded, and then in open play, you could say that our attacking play was absolutely fantastic, really good. There's some exciting play. We had brilliant our front 6, but alongside that, there is a defensive aspect of the game that we need to make sure that we're better at this year, and we've set ourselves targets this year in the preseason so far. Zac and the rest of the defenders have been fantastic in terms of 2 or 3 clean sheets already. We're harder to beat. We're defending the goal well. And I always think, I speak as a defender myself, is that attackers win you games of football, but defenders win you MLS Cups, and defenders win you championships. And I think this year what you'll see from this team is you'll see a better tactical in terms of our defensive approach. And I think you'll see a better sort of like understanding of what we want as a defensive unit from back to front.
Heather, a very popular category of question every year is concessions, and it was as specific as like what local restaurants are going to be there. Where did the pizza go? Where's pizza going to be? So we're combining like 4 questions at least into one. Can you give an overview on concessions in 2025? What's new? What are the highlights?
Yes. All right, we're getting to the important stuff now, guys. Got a lot of answers for this one. So I know pizza has been on everyone's mind. I know we've been missing it since the end of last season. We have a new pizza vendor. We're excited to bring in Pizzicato as pizza at the stadium this year. Yes. Round of applause. Thank you. I had some of it today. It's delicious. So that's really exciting. We have, some of our old favorites, Cha-Cha-Cha, Killer Burger coming back. We're going to have a new fried chicken option that I think is going to be delicious. That'll be coming online shortly. Unfortunately, that does replace the Dutch Bros stand, and I know that a lot of you love the Dutch Bros stand. We're looking for some other solutions there. I know. I can't all be good news for me, you guys. Other exciting food options, our guest chef program in Tanner Ridge, for those of you that might be in Tanner Ridge. That was really popular last year. We're doing that again this year, and our lineup this year is spectacular. If you're a foodie, I suggest you get some tickets in Tanner Ridge. We have 3 James Beard Award nominees as guest chefs this year. Gabriel Rucker from Le Pigeon, Kara Shaughnessy from Hayward out in my neck of the woods in McMinnville, and Sarah Schaefer from Humble Spirit, also in McMinnville. So really excited about that, kicking off with Lil Shalom on Sunday and their hummus with burnt ends, which is delicious. So we have a lot of good, exciting new options coming, and we'll be evolving that over the year, including, Two Towns Cider is back, Michelob Ultra, various craft beer options throughout the stadium. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
Ned, this next question for you is kind of more philosophical and process-wise. How do you find the next player, and how far in the future do you look for new players? We talked about like the specific players you're bringing in, but this is more just kind of the holistic process that you do in scouting.
Yeah, well, I think moving into this year, I go back to the off season a year prior. It was vital for us as a club to start to build out the scouting department. We have the most resources now that we've had as a club over the last 12 months to do that. We have a technical director in Jack Dodd, a director of scouting in Nacho, who's here in the room tonight, just doesn't want to answer any questions. And now we've got a group of scouts in different markets in different countries all over the world. This has really helped us in our scouting process, where I believe it's vital to be successful in this league now when you look at how you build rosters. And so the work that goes into trying to identify these players starts very, very early on. And they're constantly monitoring players throughout the year, obviously thinking through who are some of the players that we could potentially lose, either through sale, through contracts. So the work is constant as we go forward. And then as we move through each window, we obviously try to put the priorities in place of what we're trying to achieve and what are sort of the most important ones and what are some of the ones that maybe we can wait on. So for me right now, I feel as confident as I've felt in someone who's previously been in all of these positions, in my time in 9 years at the club, that we have the best ability now to identify some of the best players, not just watching players or trying to find players, but taking a more objective and data approach in terms of what we do and what fits our game model. So really it is a long and lengthy process with a lot of people involved. I think we've got really, really good people in this space, and I'm confident in the group.
Heather, next question is for you, and we're looking now a year and a half ahead into the future. But the summer of 2026 is going to be a big summer for soccer in this country. The World Cup coming to the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The league will take a break for that World Cup. Do you have any plans? Do the Timbers have any plans for Timbers team-related special events or competitions during that World Cup break next summer?
Yeah, I think one of the things I really appreciate about our fans is that we haven't actually even kicked off the 2025 season, and everyone's asking me about 2026. So, look, we're in the early stages. We will have a break in 2026, so there should be an opportunity to do some fun stuff, including hopefully watch parties and other World Cup sort of related activities. Like I said, we don't have a lot of specific plans yet, but Ned and I are working on the possibility of a celebratory testimonial style match to honor a couple of club legends that I think people will be really excited about. So more to come on that.
Next one, Phil, for you, and it's a tactical question. It says, this person says, it feels like the team plays in a 4-2-3-1 formation almost every season. What's the philosophy behind the club's formation strategy? And would they, or you, ever consider 2 striker or 3 in the back formations?
Well, I think if you've been watching us in the pre-season, we've been playing 3 at the back in pre-season, and we haven't had a number 10 in pre-season. We haven't had Santi Moreno in pre-season. We haven't had Jonathan Rodriguez in pre-season. So it's meant that we've had to probably utilize the players that have been available, which has meant that we've had more defenders. So we've played 3-4-3 and 3-5-2, and the 2 striker system is really interesting because we have Pipe Mora, who is fantastic in any kind of system, and we have Kevin Kelsey, who we brought here to play. So I think in this moment in time, with no Rodriguez, no Santi, and no David Acosta in maybe the first game, we have to get as many goals on the pitch as possible. So that's why we've been trying with the two centre forwards up front. They link well together. Kevin can run the channels. Pipe's got really experience to drop into the little hole. So at this moment in time, we are working 2 systems. But what I would say is that the roster is built to play 4-2-3-1. I feel as if with the players we've got and the profile of players we've got, David Da Costa has to play in the number 10 position. Santi has to play off the right-hand side. Anthony even has to play, on the wide with Jonathan as well. So the roster is built to play 4-2-3-1. But I think modern-day football, you have to be flexible. And then what we've learned in the last 2 or 3 weeks is that Pipe Mora and Kevin play really well together. And sometimes through an injury, through adversity, you stumble on a system that actually suits the team even better. The 5 at the back makes us really defensively solid. So I think having that flexibility and adaptability, particularly in this early part of the season when we're down probably 4 or 5 players, is crucial. Is crucial to what we want to do.
Ned, I also kind of extend that to you. When you're looking at bringing players in, how much of that is based on system that the club wants to play versus just finding a really good player and then finding a way to fit them in?
I think Phil answered that well. I do think over the last year or two that there's been I think maybe questions of do we potentially shift, to a different formation. It is challenging, I would say, within the current rules and restrictions within MLS to try to build a roster to play 3 or 4 different ways. But ultimately, I think in my role and my job, I have to provide the coach options. And you look at it, and I try and provide him as many different colors of paint and different paint brushes, and he does have to paint some of it, and we've got to give flexibility because the MLS season can be cruel. It's long, it's rigorous. You have call-ups at times. You've got injuries at times. You've got multiple competitions to deal with. And so I think there does need to be some flexibility within an MLS roster to have the ability to potentially shape up, in a different way.
I think if you remember the Minnesota game last year, we were 2-0 down at halftime, actually playing really well. And in the second half, we only had one defender on the pitch. We played, I think it was, did you play in the second half? No, you got a cut head at halftime. So I think there was only Zupa. Yeah. It was only Zupa. I think Zupa played centre-back, and then there was Anthony on one wing, Dairon on the other, and we just said, sod it, we're just going to go for it. And it was actually it was Dairon's last game for the club, and I remember in the last 5 minutes, we literally had no defenders on the pitch, and I kept saying to my assistant, I think we need to put Miguel Arajo on. He said, Phil, let's just go for it. So, and we ended up winning the game 4-2. So I think in terms of systems, we're going to attack. I think it's the only way I know. It's the way that the club, I think, wants to be as well. It's the reason I was brought in. We're going to attack, we're going to entertain, and that's the way I like to play.
But let's maybe try to limit how many games we play with no defenders on the field. Just, that would help calm me a little.
Heather, the next question is for you. It's about the area around Providence Park. The person says, the neighborhood north of McDonald's isn't safe after night games. Can the club do anything?
Yeah, that's a tough question, and we've heard about this a lot from our fans and from, frankly, the neighborhood as well. I think we all know as Portlanders that the city still has quite a few challenges from a public safety perspective, and the stadium neighborhood is one of the areas that has been the most challenged recently. So we've been working as closely as we can with the city. I've personally met with Portland Police Chief Bob Day a number of times over the last year, expressed our concerns, expressed our willingness to be part of the solution as well, and asked how we can help. He's been a great partner. I think he's doing a great job, obviously resourced, challenged, which hopefully won't get worse before it gets better. But we're also meeting with all of the new members of the city council, sort of starting with District 4, and expressing that from our perspective, public safety in the stadium area needs to be a priority of the city. We want our fans to be safe. We know many of you walk from downtown, parking garages, park in the neighborhood. Hopefully our partnership with TriMet allows you to take TriMet, directly to the stadium using your match ticket. That can help improve the public safety, concerns that you may have. But it's something that we take very seriously and we do work on. And I will say, as this new form of city government starts to find its footing, I would certainly encourage all of you who live here to be participants in that and call your city council representatives or email them and express to them what you want your priorities and their priorities to be for the city going forward. But Providence Park remains, a place that I think is really important to the future of Portland, to the economic future of Portland, to the cultural future of Portland. And so we will continue to do everything we can to work with the city to make improvements.
When we win a game, I get 6 chicken McNuggets and a strawberry milkshake from this McDonald's. So if anyone wants to join me after we win a game, I get 6 chicken McNuggets from this McDonald's.
Right. They're going to sell a lot of McNuggets this year.
Yeah, I might have to go for 16 next time.
Yeah. For Phil and for Ned, what programs are in place to support the players' mental health and career development?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit, as we got to the end of the season last year, staffing as we were going forward. How are we going to continue, to evolve the club? And that's not just with the players that we acquire and the roster that we put in place and the product that we see on the field, each weekend. But really, what are the areas as a club that we need to continue to grow and improve? The player care, player support for us was an area that was easily identified as being, an area that we could ultimately improve. I think we've done that this offseason. We've made 2 hires to the staff. One being Nate Cahoon, who's our player care manager. Nate's job is to help players settle, help the families, acclimate to a new environment, a new culture. Sometimes these players are leaving, their country for the first time. They're going to a place that they don't know. We have to try to get players to feel as comfortable as we possibly can off the field, their families, feeling positive about the change that they've made as well, to try and get the best out of them on the field as well, so that they can focus, on their profession. Lacey Henderson, we've hired Lacey Henderson as our mental performance coach. She's going to be an unbelievable addition and an additional layer to everything that we do on the performance side. When you think about the physical aspect, when you think about the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, all these things add up to how a player may perform over a given stretch, over one game, over the course of an entire season. We've realized that that's an important area for us to focus on this offseason. She's going to be phenomenal, and we feel really, really good about some of the staffing additions, that we've made this offseason.
Awesome. We have one more for Zac, and then we'll open it up for open mic, so to speak, for all of you guys. Zac, just curious your perspective on the preseason. This person says it looks like you guys have had a good preseason as a team. What's your perspective on the past month and a half, and your perspective heading into this season of where the squad is at?
Yeah, I think, like Phil said, we scored a lot of goals last year, but on the flip side of that, we conceded a lot as well. So we've really focused on how we're going to defend as a team, how we're going to press as a team, high up the field, in the mid block and in the low block. And I think just throughout the preseason games, we've improved every step of the way. Like Phil said, we've had two to three shutouts in the few games we've had, which is already a big improvement. Obviously, we have to translate that into league play now. But just getting that buy-in from every player on the field, starting from the goalies, going all the way up to the forwards, Kevin Kelsey, Felipe Mora, and just, if you get the high press right and you turn the ball over in good spots, it's going to turn into opportunities, chances, goals, and ultimately wins.
All right, let's open it up now. First up right away, let's go. You're ready for it, weren't you?
Hi there. This is, I think, mostly for Ned. You mentioned a little bit about analytics. So just to let you know where I'm coming from, I'm a statistician. And I was reading an article in The Athletic last week, I think it was, about what's gone wrong at Manchester United.
Why did you look at me?
I think it's a question for Phil.
Anyway, they were suggesting, it seemed to me, that being behind on the sports analytics, the data science end of things was causing a problem. So I'm wondering what we're doing.
Yeah, good question. And look, the sports now are evolving, and all sports are. And there's a lot of different approaches you could take to it. It can just be all data-driven, all statistic-driven, and you allow that to make all of the decisions within the club. It's very just black and white. There's no other conversations based on those decisions. At our club, and our belief over the last few years, if we continue to try and rely more and more on data, statistical analysis, is it needs to be very much a part of what we do. It needs to be a part of our routine. I'm a big believer that it helps spark healthy debate in conversations. We can look at things subjectively, and Phil and I may leave a game. He's on the field watching the game. It's very emotional. I'm sitting up in a press box, and it's very different. He may thinks that a player performed very well, and I may think he didn't. We've got to jump into that to have a better understanding. What is it saying objectively as well? I think we started to layer that into everything that we do at the club, how we ultimately judge players, how we make decisions. I already touched a little bit on the scouting component in terms of that being a big driver, even in the early stages, to help put players, in front of us. We don't have to rely on agents We don't have to rely on a scout to go and watch a game. We should be able to look at those things and have players in front of us immediately that are interesting based on data, based on statistical analysis. So I would say we've started to take great steps forward in this area, but we're not a club that just is going to rely solely on that. I think you've got to rely on experienced people. Phil's played the game at the highest level. He's been at some big clubs. You have to have a little bit of feel for things. You've got to have a pulse on things as well. But without question, I would say within the last few years, we've taken great steps in that area.
I think the second part of that question is.
But what has happened?
Yeah, Phil,
at
what's
Man
gone wrong
United?
at Manchester United?
How long we got? I mean, I think since they sold me, they've just gone really downhill, you know?
That's what it's been. It's a curse, maybe, even. I don't know. We'll go on this side. Yeah.
Phil, everybody else. I just want to start by thanking you for bringing the Cascadia Cup back home. Thank you for that. And it's not so much of a question, rather a commitment that we're going to keep it here this year, starting with Sunday, right? Can we get this? Can we get a commit?
Yeah.
There you go. Let's do this, right?
Let's do it.
Well, so what are we going to do to flip the script, right? We ended the year not so well against them. What are we doing to flip the script on Sunday so we can crush the Caps?
Yeah, well, I think I think 12 months ago we was here, and I think somebody in the audience said that winning the Cascadia Cup was more important than getting into the playoffs. And I've got to be totally honest. I didn't agree at the time because we all wanted to get into the playoffs, and we still do. But I think when we lifted that trophy in Seattle this year, I sensed the feeling. Even before the game, I think I had to come out and do an interview. And I saw all our supporters up in the top of that stadium up there, and I thought, this is a big game. It's a big game for the supporters. It's a big game for this football club. So I don't do revenge. I think I like to look forward, but I think when those fixtures came out and Vancouver was at the first game, I've got to say I was saying let's get to the 23rd of February and let's put a few things right.
We'll go back to this side. Yeah.
Hi, Phil. If we were to come in 5th place this season, like in the regular season, would you see that as a success?
Great question. I think if you look at the last 2 or 3 seasons, you would have to say finishing in 5th is massive improvement of where we were at. Last year we finished in 9th, the year before that in 10th. There was marginal improvement. I think you saw big improvement on the field in some of the aspects of our play, and in other aspects we didn't really improve that much. So I think that the aim, I'd say, when we start the season is almost like 2 or 3 aims. Yes, we want to win the MLS Cup, the Supporters' Shield. That's our North Star. But I think first and foremost, let's start the season well. I think there's been a history in the last 4 or 5 years of us not starting the season well. Start the season well. Let's get enough points on the table. Then the next aim is let's get into that top 7 playoff positions, which then gets you into at least a game over 3 legs, which at least hopefully 2 are going to be at Providence Park, which for me guarantees hopefully you through to the next round. And then after that, you then say, right, can we get to the top 4? Guaranteed a home playoff. So there's little baby steps along the way in the season that we aim for. And I think if you said, would we take 5th now? I think we would say, yeah, because that's a massive improvement of where we're at. But I think the way that myself and Ned and Heather and obviously Merritt is that we want to win the whole thing. You know, I think if you dream big and aim high and reach for the moon, then you might catch a star underneath that as well. So I think we want to win the league, and we want to improve on what we did last season.
Yeah.
Coach, in terms of your coaching philosophy and or tactics, what have you brought forward, if anything, from your time playing for and observing Sir Alex Ferguson, your time with Man U?
Well, I think you take great things from all the managers that I've played for, but I was lucky enough to play for the greatest. So I think the biggest thing I took from him was was discipline, you know, and coming into work every single day to work your absolute hardest. He was the greatest manager with the simplest philosophy. Work as hard as you possibly can. Come in with real discipline. Do everything right every single day. And make sure little things like say please and thank you, dress right, speak to people with respect, work your goddamn hardest every single day. And he didn't demand that much from you apart from those things. And he was all about the team. And we talked about sort of like the Evander issue in the off season. And I had a little parrot on my shoulder saying like, what would Sir Alex do now? The minute that tweet went out, he was out the door, you know. And why? Because the team is more important than any individual. So I learned great things, but the great things that he learned me was the simple things in life that probably every single person in this room adheres to anyway. You get out of bed every single morning, work your goddamn hardest, and get into work first and make sure you're the last to leave. And everything in between you've got to do to your absolute best of your ability. And those was his biggest values. He didn't coach. Never took a training session in 18 years I was at Manchester United, but he was the greatest manager of all time, and I think because he had such strong, simple values every single day.
Yeah, right. Quick one for Ned, and then one for Zac. So, Ned, do you know you're like one Bolivian short of a full CONMEBOL? You could have a player from every CONMEBOL country. So when are you going to sign a Bolivian? And then when... I don't think anybody's done that in MLS ever. And then for Zac, Coach Neville and Ned have talked a lot about sort of tactics and what the new players bring. What do you see? What have you seen in the new guys? What are some like cool things that you've seen these guys do? Why should we be excited?
So starting, Phil highlighted Ian Smith. I think he's impressed the veteran players, the younger players. He's impressed me. It's not easy coming in from a college draft and just really playing college just last year, coming in and making an impression on coaches, the front office. He's very technically sound. He's very, very physically, strong, fast. He can handle himself, which you don't really see right away coming out of a college draft. Jimmer Forey, he's got character. He's meshed with the team right away. He's a very. I wasn't expecting him to be so tall. He's almost the same height as me, which you don't really see out of a left back. But he's also really quick, really fast, left-footed, obviously, and very good in the air. Ari Lassiter, very fast. He's left-footed, but he surprisingly has a very strong right foot as well. Joao, he brings, like Ned was saying, a calm presence. He connects the midfield. He's a workhorse. That's kind of what you see in those, Central American countries, South American countries. Those midfielders are really just nasty destroyers, kind of like a Diego Chara presence in that sense. I think these additions have been really good. They've meshed with the team really well, really fast.
Ned, are you going to sign somebody from Bolivia? That was the... Then you have every South American country.
Well, it's if the data and the statistical analysis lead us to a Bolivian player. I mean, my only question, would they be able to play at sea level?
Yeah,
or would that be a challenge without the altitude?
We'll go back to this side. Meredith, you get to pick of the three enthusiastic questions.
This one's for Heather. Our season ticket prices are going up much faster than inflation. When is the club going to quit balancing their books on the backs of their greatest supporters?
Well, season ticket prices mostly remained flat this year. So, we were conscious of that and tried to find the right balance this year. So I don't think that season ticket prices overall are increasing faster than inflation. Certainly not this year. It's a challenge. It's a challenge in professional sports in general. Everything is more expensive. when I say everything, I'm not really necessarily talking about, the nuts and bolts. I'm talking about the people who are, who Ned is signing and who Phil are talking about. Like, the cost of playing poker in MLS is rising, and you see that in, some of these big transfer fees and some of these huge signings. So, it's definitely a balance, and we want to be mindful of it and continue to try and make sure that the game remains accessible for as many people as we can.
Yeah, right.
50th anniversary kit right up here.
All right. Yeah, that was really nice of you guys. Yeah, that worked really well.
Hey, thank you. Phil, a quick question. We've got a lot of new faces. Who are we going to see playing on Sunday?
Who are we going to see?
From the new guys.
Do you want the starting 11?
That'd be great. Yes. Yeah, who are the
We've got to
starting
turn the
11?
cameras. We've got to turn the cameras off then, So, look, I think the majority will be starting on Sunday. No, I think Jimmy Forey's got a good chance of starting. Kevin Kelsey's got a good chance of starting. João Ortiz has got a good chance of starting. Zac McGraw's got a really good chance of starting on Sunday. Who else? Yeah. David DaCosta, there's visa issues at this moment in time. We're praying every single day that we get the go-ahead and he gets to get his visa situation sorted out. So that's going to be a late call. But the rest, I think, will start.
Hey, guys. Zach, I know you didn't want to go take a nap, so I'll be quick. On a twist on the last question, while season tickets for GA have stayed roughly the same, SeatGeek loves a good fee. And so how do you think about capping the fees, the service fees on SeatGeek tickets for GA, if nothing else? And if not, why?
Look, we work with SeatGeek to keep fees as reasonable as possible. I mean, I don't think it's really a mystery to anyone that everyone involved in professional sports is running a for-profit business, and so we run up against this issue every year, and we do try to, like I said, to keep prices and fees as reasonable as possible, given the objectives of Ned and Phil and the club and the league and the growth that we're experiencing. I don't have a great answer for you. I'm not, I can't commit to things like caps right out, on this stage, but we do push it as hard as we can, and we do work with our partners to try and find the right balance as much as we can.
Yeah, we haven't had one this. In the construction hat. We wear a construction hat, you definitely get to ask a question.
Hello. What will it be like to play against Evander on August 16th against Cincinnati?
Diego Chara bobblehead night, please don't. So,
I can take this one.
I'm not playing against Evander on August.
I traded him, so I guess I'll answer the question. Look, he's going to be motivated for that game. You know that he is. And look, we know that he's a very, very good player, but some GMs may try and put something into the trade where they're not, the player's not allowed to play against the team. I don't believe in that. I believe you make the move and you move forward. But certainly I think it's one probably that will have a storyline and a narrative around Evander for that match when we host Cincinnati later in the summer. But I think we've got a group of players that will equally be intrigued by that game as well.
well, and we'll have the Timbers Army behind us, so that'll help.
I think the away team stays in the Bidwell Hotel, right? So I think at 3 o'clock in the morning, I think you set the fire alarm off at 3 o'clock in the morning. You get Evander on the street in Portland there and bang your drum in his face and make sure he's tired for the next day.
Straight in the back.
I was only joking. I was only joking.
Hey, Coach. Kind of circling back to the defeat at the end of the season. It's humiliating to lose at that margin, but what's worse, seeing players hang their heads halfway through the game. How are we taking steps and making changes to ensure that doesn't happen and we can continue moving forward and kind of embodying the Ayala spirit of fighting to the last minute?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's something that I felt too. You can win, you can draw, you can lose games of football, but there's the manner in which we lost was one that particularly sat with me and Ned in the next 2 or 3 weeks that preceded that game. And I think at that moment we decided that we had to make some real aggressive changes. Because like I say, you can lose games of football, but there's some of the things that I saw that night were for me unacceptable on every level. I said about the Sir Alex Ferguson, work as hard as you possibly can until you can't work no more. And I think that night I saw 2 or 3 players maybe that quit on us a little bit when the going really got tough. So I think that was really an eye-opener for me in terms of the decisions then going forward. And it was a very humbling evening. I was embarrassed. It wasn't nice, but I think out of something like that brings extra motivation every single day. The last video we showed the players at the end of last season was that 5-0 screenshot. That was our motivation in the off-season, and it's got to be our motivation now because that feeling we had after that game, we never want again.
Yeah, to the right, or your guys' left.
Hey there. I know that there's a media filter, but at the end of the day, there is also blame that goes around. And there's a lot of blame that goes towards management and ownership. We lose a lot of talent, and people have opportunity to change the team and the coaches. But the Evander situation's just the tip of the iceberg. We've had that situation multiple times in the past. Management and ownership is a reputation the Portland Timbers have here at this club. What are we doing to change that, modify the way that we handle the expectation for the talent coming in, and retaining the people that we really want to keep here?
Yeah, and clearly from your question, you probably strongly disagree with the decision to ultimately trade Evander. I think in my position specifically, I'm tasked with what I consider to be a difficult job. I've got to deal with 30 contracts of players, not to mention 20 more in staff. I've had to deal with contracts that are up here, on the stage with me. You're dealing with people's livelihoods, you're dealing with egos. There's a lot of things that you're dealing with. But for me, in my role, what I constantly try and do is I try to work in a way that I find to be respectful and honest, and in the end, things may not always go perfectly the way that we want them to. In a different world, would I have wanted Evander to have been successful here for a long term? Yes, but it's got to be a mutual commitment. It's got to be a mutual commitment. And it was clear as we moved forward and even moved into the offseason that wasn't going to happen. It really wasn't. But you're dealing with players that sometimes are coming to the end of their retirement, their contracts are up. You're being offered sometimes large sums of money for some of these players as well. And you have to try and figure out what makes most sense for the club, both short and long term. I'm never going to expect everyone, whether it's inside the club, outside of the club, to agree with every single decision that happens within the roster. Unfortunately, I don't get to be the good guy all the time. Unfortunately, I do have to make difficult decisions, and people are going to disagree with those at times. For me, what's most important, how I was raised, how I was taught, morals, ethics, I try and deal with everything as honest as I possibly can. I try and give the respect in return. I've gone through a lot of these things as players as well. I've been released. I've been cut. I've been traded. I've gone through nasty contract situations. And so for me, I think those experiences help me lean on, those qualities to try and manage what at times can be, difficult situations and difficult scenarios. I do think we've got a lot of talented individuals on the team. We've had a lot of talented designated players that we brought in the past. I think we've shown as a club that we can do that. But ultimately, we also have to have players that want to be here, want to play for the badge and the crest, want to be here in the city long term, and ultimately we want to try and win. So we continue to do that even through some of the difficult decisions that need to be made, and that's something that falls on my shoulders. I understand that comes with the role.
We have time for two more. Man, this is so hard to choose. I'll go right. You're really enthusiastic in the front row, so go for it. Yes. Yeah, small enough room.
This question, I think, is for Heather, and this is kind of a tricky question to get out. So that we give the supporter section a bit of an advantage where they're seating. I mean, the away supporters an advantage where they are seated in the stadium right next to the Mac Club amplifies a lot of their sound. And I'm sitting in the middle of the stadium, and sometimes the Seattle fans are louder than the Timbers Army. Has there ever been any consideration about moving them, like maybe to the other side where they're not getting that advantage from being in that corner where the sound echoes off the walls, especially with their drums?
If they move them up by the McDonald's, like out of the stadium. The Seattle fans, we're going to move out of the stadium. Heather's going to get that taken care of. The Seattle fans are going to be out of the stadium.
I mean, I've definitely thought about moving them up to the, tennis courts on the top of the Mac Club. I think that could help. Do you notice that the sound is amplified, Phil, Zac? Does it feel loud? Should we address this? I haven't. This is the first time I'm hearing of that. No, we haven't thought of it. We feel like they're like as far away in the corner as possible. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll just try and see if we can get them, like Ned said, all the way out of the stadium. But the next time.
Yeah.
Maybe just like a giant curtain around them or something.
Yeah.
Chris Wilson, are you taking notes over there?
Last one. I saw the hand up first, so we'll go right here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys taking the time to speak to us. Congrats, Daddy. I will say, as a college soccer player, I'd like to know, how is the aura in the locker room?
How are the vibes, Zac?
Vibes.
I thought it was on about your aura ring.
yeah, me too.
That too.
I went from college to asking about my ring. I was a little confused at first. The vibes are good. The vibes are good. We had a really good preseason as a group. We had a lot of good team bonding moments, integrating new players. I think the vibes are good going into the year. Obviously, it's a clean slate from last year, and our focus is on 2025.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much for coming. The questions were fantastic, including several that I feel like I've never heard before, like the awaits. I hadn't even thought about that, but man. Thank you to Ned, to Heather, to Phil, and to Zac for answering all these questions. And let's go. 2025, Sunday. We'll see you everybody at Providence Park. Thanks for coming.